Hey, and welcome to Black Belt in Real Estate. I'm excited for season 3. If you've listened to the first 2 episodes of season 3, you have heard that I'm going back to the old school raw conversations, talking by myself directly into the camera, just sharing the latest trends, data, uh, and things you should know if you're a home buyer or seller, mainly in Los Angeles. But a lot of the things that I talk about will apply to, any market. Today, I have a friend of mine on the show. The reason why I wanted to bring him here today is that one of the hottest topics in the real estate market right now is the interest rates and how is that going to affect the market. If you're a buyer, when should you buy? If you're a seller, when should you list? And Arjun Dhingra is the mortgage guru, as we call him. He's not only a mortgage guy. What speaks volume is that he's a 2-time Taekwondo World Champion, and as a fellow martial artist, I love talking to martial artists because there's a code of conduct, which is, honesty, being strong, keeping your word. So I think this is going to be very valuable. If you want to know more about Arjun, go to episode 291 of the I Love Success podcast, where we dig deep into his story. So if you're thinking about working with him or just want to get to know him more, please listen to that episode because I think you'll love it. Today is going to not be so much personal journey. We're going to dig right into, the real estate market. So Arjun, first of all, welcome to Black Belt in Real Estate.
Thanks, Peter, for having me, brother. I appreciate it. And always good to talk with you, man. Like you said, it's always good to stay closely connected to fellow martial artists.
Yeah. And curious about your thoughts. I mean, there's so many thoughts where the interest rates are going. And it seems like, if you go on, like, one thing that I don't like with the real estate market and real estate agents like myself is that many oversell and underdeliver. As soon as there's like a post or an article, everybody's saying there's gonna drop by now and things like that. So first of all, I just want to say I'm not that guy. I want to try to dig into more like what's going on. And then if it makes sense to you to buy or sell, you should always have a one-on-one, not only with a real estate agent, but also with, a mortgage broker to kind of figure out what the next steps are. But being in this industry for 22 years, seeing all these cycles, like what are your thoughts on the interest rates and the real estate market?
So this is a definitely unique cycle. And even people who've been in the industry much longer than me have cited that this is the first of its kind. And that is a strong statement to be able to say, especially if you work through the 08-09 market crash. Yeah. So what makes this market right now very unique, and it's created a lot of noise, which is why there's so many articles and so many different thought leaders giving different commentary on it. And everyone's quite confused and scratching their heads because it doesn't make any sense. When mortgage rates shoot up, especially as fast as they did this last year, as a result of what was going on. I mean, there was some Fed policy, but really what drives mortgage rates is inflation, and that's it. So inflation 2 years ago became very, very hot. That's what drove mortgage rates. The Fed doesn't have anything to do with it, but what the Fed talks about can certainly have influence on rates up or down. But when this happened, ordinarily when rates spike up, because it pulls demand right out of the market, that's the idea, you see prices drop. But that didn't happen in this cycle. So people were waiting for prices to crash. And there was all these YouTubers putting out content and people on Instagram saying the market's going to crash, housing is going to crash. And it didn't crash. If anything, in most markets, it continued to increase, relatively speaking, by a marginal amount. And then in other markets, it held flat. And the reason for that is because we overcomplicate these things. Everything still comes back to supply and demand. Yeah. We're talking about housing. We're not talking about some speculative asset class like cryptocurrency or something. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I'm an investor in Bitcoin also, so I like to gamble. But when it comes to housing, it's driven by life events, household demographics, and interest rates, right? People are still going to get married. They're still going to start families. They're still going to get divorced. There's going to be death, sadly. People need to downsize, upsize, move for schools, empty nesters. That will never stop. Nobody makes a decision to get married based on what's going on with mortgage rates. You know, they don't propose to their fiance and then say, okay, let's plan the wedding. By the way, let's check mortgage rates and see whether we should plan. No, life still happens. So life events are what are going to drive this current market, and that's going to happen. But if everyone just remembers that, you know, it's still housing, everyone needs shelter, it's never going out of style, it's not going away. We still have way too few homes. We still have way too many people that want homes. And as long as there's this imbalance of demand and supply being the way that it is, you're going to see prices stay where they're at or continue to increase. When rates do eventually come even lower, and they're already trending lower, people forget they were at a 25-year high a few months ago and have come off that high considerably, 1.5%, almost 2% in some cases, depending on the product and the borrower profile. But for every 1% that rates drop, roughly 4 to 5 million buyers come back into the market. And that is a very, very big number nationally speaking, because when you have more buyers and you still have the same few houses, now you get back into what pushes prices upward. So that was a very long-winded answer to your question there, Peter, but that's the synopsis of the market in terms of where it's at now, why it's been so much of a head scratcher. And it's confused a lot of people because, like I said, it's not working the way traditional models work when rates go up or rates go down.
Yeah, no, thank you for that answer. And like, just to share with what I'm seeing here in the local marketplace from my own experience, we're looking at a house north of Montana in Santa Monica, 4.395 million. Just a couple of weeks ago, 17 offers, Arjun.
Wow.
Now, this is an area that is very attractive, and people are just waiting for a house to come on the market because there's almost nothing there. But in my mind, that felt almost like the COVID era. Another buyer looking for a home in Redondo Beach, which is also an attractive area, but lower price point, $1,150,000, 18 offers. Yesterday, we wrote an offer on a $3 million house in Santa Monica, 7 offers. So I'm trying to get a sense of what's going on and what is going to happen if and when rates drop more. So I'm just curious, is this kind of the effect of buyers looking to get in before more buyers come back? Or do you think it's going to keep, like, what's your take on this?
So it's a bit of the previous answer that I gave and also what you said. I think it's some people are doing so because it is strategically speaking, like the way I advise clients, when rates are a little bit higher, you have a little less demand.
Yeah.
Now that gives you an opportunity because you can only negotiate the sales price of a home once.
Yeah.
The concessions that you get, the credits, that can only happen once. A mortgage rate is so temporary. Nobody keeps a mortgage long enough to ever realize whether it was a good rate or bad rate or fantastic. It doesn't matter. It's nothing more than a placeholder that gives you access to the property. So when people are focused on the price of the property, and to your point, there's still enough of those people, in spite of rates being higher, that there's still multiple offers, right? You just gave examples of all these homes that still have so many offers coming in. If rates dip lower, I gave you the metric already, right? For every percent they drop, 4 to 5 million new buyers come in. Are they all in LA? No, of course not. But relatively speaking, you increase the affordability for people to get into a certain price point range when borrowing costs are cheaper, which means the competition only increases. And why is this happening when the market was supposed to crash or housing is supposed to be a terrible investment? Because life is continuing to happen, right? Much like in your case, you said you wrote it out. Like, why you were moving because of life, right? You've started a family, you need more space. Like, that is going to continue happening in spite of what goes on in the broader economy. The labor markets are still, relatively speaking, strong. The people that earn money, that are in a certain income threshold of being able to buy a home, whether it's a condo or a house, that remains strong. So as long as these things stay in place and inventory remains super tight, you're going to see these situations that you just outlined. And again, they're a byproduct of people trying to get in now before the frenzy starts again. And also because life continues to happen. They're not worried about. Some of them may not even be thinking about what's going on with rates. They're just thinking, we have to move because our child needs to go to school in that area, and this is the only house, and it suits our needs, and we want to go.
Yeah. And I just want to be clear, I'm not trying to convince anyone here to do anything.
Right.
What I'm saying is, if it makes sense and your lifestyle can afford, making a move so you can enjoy life a little bit more, it's worth exploring. That's the only
Sure.
thing I'm saying. Uh,
Agreed.
Talking about, let's focus a little bit more on sellers. And I know approximately 70% of sellers need to buy another home. And they have been locked into, under 3% rates, and it's hard for them to buy a bigger home that's more expensive and also, hit the higher rate. So what are your advice for home sellers right now, as far as, the rates and, upsizing?
So for sellers, there's two challenges, obviously, because to your point, most sellers become buyers. So it's not like it's adding any inventory when somebody finally does decide to sell, because they are going to go absorb, because they need a house again, right? They need to live. They're not just going away. So they absorb the inventory. So it ends up being a wash. But sellers have a difficult situation because they want to price their home to sell appropriately, and they want to get an ideal price for it, maybe not an egregious price, because that's just not going to happen. And then they need to turn around and find their next place. So when it comes to selling, I think sellers, because sadly, as you and I were chatting about offline, a lot of real estate agents, unfortunately, and even mortgage professionals are just chasing the transaction. They're not there to give actual sound advice or advise people and guide them. And so they'll say, okay, let's list it at this price. And if it doesn't sell after X number of days, we're going to start cutting the price and cutting, which doesn't do anybody any good. One, your client, if you're a seller, you as the seller, you don't like this idea, because now that's eating into your profit, and this is money that you needed to get your next house. So this is affecting your future plans and giving you a bad taste in your mouth. It also records a lower comp, which then actually brings values down for that area, for homes of that size and age. So nobody really wins with that strategy. The sellers that are being the most successful, I believe, are the ones who come into it with the right forward-thinking strategy right away. They want to package and almost follow the new construction or the new builder model. New inventory, brand new inventory that's packaged by builders is done so uniquely because they have a totally different commodity. They can make that product ready to sell because they can alter and play with so many different things and customize it. It's a totally different product that's on the shelf than existing inventory. But if sellers can adopt some of that mindset and say, look, we're going to package this home at this price. We're going to sell our home for $3.5 million. We are already going to build in for you $30,000 as a credit from us, from the seller, to buy down your interest rate and make this home even more affordable. So do the math and obviously make the strategy match and be applicable to the price in that particular market. But this is just an example. Yeah. If you do this, number one, you're going to start attracting the right buyers right away, people who are ready to make a deal now. Because people who want to buy now and people who are looking to sell now probably have a certain degree of urgency in doing so. They're not doing it because everybody else is doing it, like COVID, or there's like a frenzy of people and they want a bandwagon, right? Like going to buy toilet paper during the pandemic. They're not doing it because everyone else is doing it. They're doing it because they have to. So if you can actually just cut the BS and just package the sale of your home and present it in a way that's very, very appealing, not from a price standpoint, but from an incentive standpoint. You make an irresistible offer upfront to where you're not having to cut the price. Because if you were already planning to cut the price $50,000 or $75,000, why not forget that and just package it with a $30,000 or $40,000 credit towards the buyer's closing costs, or to buying down their interest rate, or towards a landscape, because this home is eventually going to need to have the pool redone. We are actually going to credit you back $40,000 to have the pool done. Therefore, you're buying it with the money, and these are the smart ways to package a deal. The sellers that I see in my market here in Northern California that are having great success in moving their homes are doing so with this type of a mindset and an outlook. And then conversely, that you need to, you can't control all the factors and where you find the next home. So that's obviously a separate challenge. But I think at least the first part of it, sellers just need to be a little bit more sophisticated and savvy and sensitive to the other side. Because let's just remember, we left a market where a seller could just put the home on the market and walk away and go sip champagne and just wait for the most ridiculous offer to come in. There was no real work happening there. So if you want to sell your home, you need to do a little work. You need to think a little bit. You need to understand what's going on the other side of the equation. And if you do that, homes can continue to sell and both people can win. The buyer can win and the seller can win.
Thank you for sharing that. And I mean, being creative is one of the most important things in being creative, is to have a team of great people around you, a good agent, a good mortgage broker, a good accountant, a good team. So if you're thinking about selling and buying, it's important that you do your due diligence and research and interview a couple of people to make sure who has the best ideas and who can get the job done for you. Wanted to share a quote from, I think everybody's quoting Lawrence Yun, the NAR, the National Association of Realtors chief economist, but he said something that I wanted to share and just get your opinion, and then we're going to do a fun game before we get out of here. So,
Yeah, brother.
Retreating mortgage rates will bring more buyers and sellers to the market and get Americans moving again. So Jan predicted that sales will rise as much as 15% this year at the conference in November. So what are your thoughts on that?
It makes sense, right? It still ties back to supply and demand. If you have lower rates, it does bring more buyers into the market. It inevitably, not direct correlation, but it inevitably will free up some sellers now to saying, okay, we can move because now this might be a better time to sell because there's going to be more buyers, and we can afford another home at these current levels of interest rate. But what we need to have happen for all of this to come true is that we need to have lower rates for an extended period of time. They can't be windows where they dip for just 1 week and then they all of a sudden shoot up, which has been what's happening over the last couple of months. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. You need what my favorite economist and mentor says, you need duration. You need lower rates with duration for a longer duration. And if you have that, it will normalize the market for a pocket of 60, 90, 120 days to where people can actually think, take a breath and say, okay, we can sell and we can move. And even with prices where they're at, this creates some affordability for us because these rates have come down and they're staying in this certain area. So I firmly agree with that economist projection. I think this is going to be a good year for sales. Is it going to be a record year? No, but it's definitely going to be a year where there's going to be a lot more sales because rates will continue to trend lower, likely in Q3 or Q4 of this year. We also have an election coming up. So there's a lot of different things hitting the news cycle that are going to have impact and create that momentum.
Yeah, and I think timing and strategy when you make these big moves are very important. But one thing that, if you're listening to this and thinking about selling or buying, it's also lifestyle. Some things can't wait. And if the affordability is there, you have to look at life quality as well. So that's something that we sometimes forget because we just look at the numbers. And I meet like a lot of my clients, they are very numbers driven, but a lot of them, they just want a home that they love life in and not, and being able to afford the payments and have a good investment. So I think that's something to think about if you're on the market right now or in this coming year. Arjun, let's play a game. I'm going to count to 3, and then I want you to share. We're both going to share what we think interest rates going to be mid-year.
Okay.
And then we're going to do it for December 31st. So let's start with mid-year. Okay, I'm going to count down from 3, and then we just share it. So,
okay.
3, 2, 1, 6.
5.875. All right, that was pretty close.
So Arjun predicts 5.875. I predict 6% by mid-year. And then let's do December 31st. So 3, 2, 1, 5.5.
6%.
Okay, perfect. 5.5 and 6%. So know this, and this is quite funny. Anybody that tells you that they know where the rates is going is full of BS, because we don't know. We can just work on projections and what we believe. And I think it benefits most of us if rates go down, buyers, sellers, us in the industry. Or what do you think?
Yeah, there's psychology associated with, right? Most people correlate a healthy housing market with low rates.
Yeah.
They think that the housing market is good when rates are low and that it is bad when rates are higher, when it's actually the opposite, because housing is fluid and it's driven again by demographics and interest rates and household formations and life events. So if rates are low, you have a very unhealthy market like what we had during COVID. 20 people lining up to make an offer on a house and overpaying by hundreds of thousands or $500,000, or even up here, overpaying by $1 million. I'm sure there's plenty of those stories in LA. There's nothing healthy about a housing market that is doing that. And that is with very low rates. When rates are higher, it normalizes. People have just needed to take some time to get used to this. This is a normal market where buyers and sellers have to sit at a table and negotiate and it's not easy. And sometimes it takes a month, sometimes it takes 45 days to sell a house instead of 2 minutes, right? So it's just a reset, I believe, Peter.
Awesome, Arjun. Before I let you go, anything else you want to share with us?
No, brother, I just applaud you for all the work you do in this space and the industry. You're an active agent, you're a martial artist, you're a good man, you're a father. Like, you're always giving. And I've enjoyed since you and I connected as friends last year and have, done some stuff together. And I look forward to collaborating more. But I would just say that for everyone that listens to this is a great guy. Continue listening. He puts out immense value. And I look forward to us actually getting to physically meet one of these days in person. So
Yeah, me
thank you,
too.
brother, for having me on. Thank you.
No, thank you, Arjun. And if people want to connect with you, where's the best place?
Instagram for sure, at Arjun Mortgage. We've got, I put out a lot of content around financial literacy and helping people make smarter decisions, frames around this conversation, that we just had. But that's the best place to connect with me.
Perfect. And thank you, everybody who listened to this episode. If you're want to connect one-on-one, please reach out to me. If you enjoy this show, give us a review, share it with somebody that wants to know a little bit more about this topic. We're trying to give as much value as we can, and we love doing this. This is one of our passions. So thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you next time.